Hello my friends, HM here. Now in this video we are going to talk about a new weapon that Ukraine have developed and that they can hit Russia with deep inside Russia. And I believe it's an offspring from this weapon you see right here. That's a Neptune anti-ship missile that Ukraine also developed, and that's also a cruise missile, and that was used to destroy the Moscow, the flagship of the Black Sea Russian Navy. If you think that sounds interesting, keep watching. Now, the president of Ukraine, Zelensky, he announced this new weapon at a speech he gave at the Ukrainian Independence Day. That was yesterday. And he said they had successfully deployed this weapon to attack Russian targets deep inside Russia. Now, he also said a little bit more about the weapon, but not much really. He said the name for what they called this weapon. I looked up the name. It is this Palianytsia. Now, that's a traditional Ukrainian bread, and the word means burned or to burn, which of course is a play with word that they want to burn the Russians with this weapon. But it's also another play with words because he said it was both a missile and a drone, so it's not quite in which category do we want to put this. Well, the Russians are also known not to be able to pronounce this name of this bread quite correctly, so they won't be able to categorize it. And that was just a play with word. Not important, but he mentioned that in his speech. Now, Zelensky said it was both a missile and a drone, and the only missile that I know of that Ukraine has made by themselves is the Neptune anti-ship missile. This is a missile that Ukraine have developed, and they use this missile to destroy this enormous ship here, Moscow. Let me show you the launcher. It can be launched from this vehicle here with 4 tubes. That's how they launch it from ground. And it was used to sink this missile destroyer, which was the flagship of the Russian Navy in the Black Sea. That's how it looked when it sank, and it actually sank completely. So very successful attack. The problem is just that after they sank this ship, Russian fleet didn't come near the Ukrainian coast because they knew they could be hit again with this missile that they discovered the Ukraine had developed themselves. So they really had no use for their missile anymore because Russia was escaping it by staying away from the Ukrainian coast. So what happened was that Ukraine started to develop a program where they wanted to extend this range of this missile so they could hit land target with it instead of ships that they no longer had any opportunity to hit again with this weapon. So it says here in this Wikipedia place that Ukraine is working on extending the range to 1,000 kilometers and also increasing production tenfold of this missile. And then it said here that Ukraine in May 2024 fired several Neptune missiles at an oil depot in Russia. And Russian officials claim to have shot down the missiles. They always claim that, but the oil depots was hit and it was burning. And then again they had another attack, and now the Russians started to call it the Neptune MD, and that was in June 21st, 2024. And they said that this missile was used to strike the Shahid drone factory. Also again in 31st of July 2024, a Neptune missile was used to strike an airbase in Kursk, Russia. So it has been used now several times by Ukraine. They have not saying a word about it. But here at Independence Day for Ukraine, Zelensky used that event to say, we have this weapon, and then he put a name on it. It's actually a big deal because it's the first time Ukraine has a weapon that they make themselves, that is a cruise missile. Now, I have a list where I list all the weapons I find interesting. Let me bring that list in. I have the main data for these weapons that I collect from internet sources. And here we have it, Neptune MD, the Russian call name, and then Palyanytsia, the Ukraine name for it. They started to use it here in May 2024. It has a range of 1,000 kilometers, and it also has a speed of 850 kilometers per hour. That was what they said the Neptune Navy missile have, and I expect it to be the same here. So it's powered by a jet engine, and it's flying low, below land-based radar, not airborne radar. And also, because of that speed and that range, it will take like 70 minutes to hit the target that you can calculate easily. And it has a warhead of about 200 kilo. How many have they built? I've said here perhaps 20. That's my guess. I know that United States are only building like 1,000 missiles per year. Not even that. Probably more closer to 500 missiles per year. So Ukraine would probably have the capacity, even if they say they increase the production of this missile tenfold, perhaps 1 or 2 missiles per week. That's what they can build. I have some other recent strikes that wasn't mentioned in this Wikipedia page where I think that Ukraine has used this weapon, and let's take a look at that now. Now, the first strike is actually very recent. It's today, the 24th of August. Ukraine successfully hit an ammunition warehouse inside Russia, and we can take a look at it right here. There's a big fire, and if you listen to the sound, you can hear some smaller explosions. So it's probably small arms munition that are cooking off in this fire. It's a pretty big fire, and you can see a better picture of it here. Here we have the city, and then in the background there's this fire. So it's a big fire. I would have thought perhaps they would have protected this facility with some anti-aircraft systems, but something got through here, and it did hit it without being shut down. Also, normally when we have these reports about facilities that has been struck successfully by Ukraine, there are always some follow-up videos with people who have filmed a drone, and you can hear a propeller drone coming in, but no such video here. And that's why I think it could have been a cruise missile, because it comes in not at like 200 kilometers per hour, but at 900 kilometers per hour, and that's simply too fast. You won't hear it come. When you hear it, it's already exploding, because it's coming in really fast, and therefore nobody can take up their smartphone and start filming it. It's just there, and then it explodes. Also, there's only really one good radar that can warn about that this cruise missile is incoming, and that would be airborne radar that can film from above and down. They would be able to see this cruise missile. And also, if they have a land-based radar, they could also get a warning about it if they've placed this radar on high ground, and then it will be able to see it perhaps 50 kilometers before it hits them. And that will give them a warning, not much, like a minute or two, to start activating their air defense systems. Okay, so that was that attack. And there's also another attack, and that was this attack here on this airport that was struck a few days ago. This is an airbase with a lot of valuable things, airplanes and stuff that Russia definitely don't want to be hit, so they most certainly have put up strong air defenses around this facility. So what has hit this airbase that could get through these air defenses deep into Russia? Let me show how all the black areas, now I'll play this video. Here you can see before it was hit, all the black areas here, that's where the vegetation has burned, so it was hit multiple places. And over here you can see some hangars. It's not very clear to see on this image, but I have some other images of it here where it's blown up with a satellite that filmed it afterwards. There's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, possibly 7 hangars that are destroyed here, possibly with airplanes in it. Over here we have an ammunition dump that was blown up. What this destruction here is probably some heavy debris that was blown up when this ammunition dump blew up, and then it has fallen down back into this hangar. But if it had an airplane in there, that would have been destroyed by this debris that has fallen back into it. And I also saw some other pictures where this hangar here was completely perforated by tungsten bullets that had destroyed whatever was inside that hangar, even though it doesn't look physically destroyed from the outside. It is full of holes. So I thought that's a new weapon that can actually penetrate Russian air defenses, and it could definitely be this new cruise missile that Ukraine has developed, because so far no Western country has allowed Ukraine to use Western weapon deep into Russia and to strike Russian air bases with cruise missiles or ballistic missiles from NATO countries. But apparently Ukraine has a new weapon that can penetrate these air defenses and hit some high-value targets. I thought that was interesting. Now, we have this that Zelensky said in his speech, it's a drone and it's a missile because according to its tactical and technical characteristics, the product falls under both definitions. So I have explained why I think it's a missile, and in particular a cruise missile, and it's based on this Neptune development, because the engineers that Ukraine have, they had to do something with all their skills now that they couldn't use the anti-ship missile anymore because Russia had pulled all of their targets out of range. So they've developed this weapon. But why does it say it's a drone weapon? I thought a little bit about that. What makes a drone is that there's a radio connection between the drone and the operator, and the operator can basically direct the drone towards its target. So what I think that Ukraine have done that would be actually unique in the world for a weapon and a world first would be to make a cruise missile that flies over the target once, take some pictures, then it uses a satellite link to bring those pictures back to the operator of this cruise missile. The operator of that cruise missile will then have like 60 seconds to put a cursor on the target he wants to be hit, and that target information will then be sent back to the missile also using this satellite connection. And then the missile will do its own thing because it has the picture of the target area and now also got the cursor where it's supposed to hit. Then the software of this missile will do the rest, and it can in the second round fly in and hit its target. Now, why would Ukraine go through all this pain to develop such a system? They would do it because they know they want to hit airports, and they know that the airports that they have in Ukraine, they have been able to avoid getting hit by Russian missiles because they move their airplanes all the time. When they get a radar warning that there are incoming missiles, then they just move them, and then Russia hit nothing. So they want to avoid that Russia can also just get a radar warning that now there's an incoming missile from Ukraine, and then they move around their airplanes or their anti-aircraft systems or their ships in harbors. They can just move them and then they can't hit them. But if you have this system that flies over, you get a picture and an operator can put a target on it, and it then returns 60 seconds later, or maybe even less, 30 seconds. Then it can be up to date, that information, and then you know you will hit something of value. And Russia will have few ways to avoid being hit. And that's why I think it's both this missile and a drone. And it shows the ingenuity of Ukrainian engineers for developing this weapon. Also, I can say Ukraine is a fantastic place to develop weapons, and that's the other thing why United States should send more of their most modern weapons to Ukraine to get them battlefield tested. I'm going to talk more about that in a forthcoming video. Now, I have a few more comments to make here. This is a photo that shows this Neptune missile being launched, and here I think it's the naval version of the Neptune missile because it's land launched. I don't think the new version of this missile that is targeting land target in Russia is launched from a ground launcher. I think it's launched from air, because if you launch it from air by dropping it from say a MiG-29 that Ukraine have, then it's already in motion, and then you can have longer range for this missile. Here also I said it was a cruise missile that uses a jet engine, but obviously you can see there's a rocket engine here that are propelling this. And don't get confused about that. There is a rocket engine, yes, that gets it out of the tube and get it into speed. And then it drops that rocket engine and the jet engine takes over, and then it basically flies like an airplane at about these 800-900 kilometers per hour to the target. So I thought that was interesting. But okay, this is a new weapon Ukraine have, and it will create a lot of havoc on Russian targets, I'm sure of. I also want to make a teaser for an upcoming video that I'll make perhaps Monday. It's a US weapon that if United States allow Ukraine to use it, the war will end because Russia will be defeated by Ukraine, and if Russia continue the war after that, they will lose all their men, they will lose all their equipment, and all it takes is that the United States president, he authorizes that weapon and also authorizes strikes in Russia. I have talked about that weapon. It's a JASSM's missile system. I talked about that in previous 2 videos, but now I have dug a lot deeper and I know a lot more about that weapon. I know how it will affect Russian weapons, all of their airplanes and helicopters and other stuff, and also how it will affect losses among Ukrainians. I'm even able to make an estimate of how it will affect the overall kill ratio between Ukrainians and Russians. And a kill ratio is, if you have a kill ratio of 2.7, which is currently what Ukraine have, it means that Ukraine are killing 2.7 Russian soldiers and equipment for every piece of equipment that Russia is killing of Ukraine. So it's 2.7 times better. But you know, that kill ratio needs to grow in order for Russia to feel that they're losing, because Russia has a country that's 4 times bigger. This weapon will change that kill ratio so that Russia will know that they are losing, and then they will pull back. I'll drop that video Monday at the latest, and it'll be super interesting, possibly the most interesting video I've ever made on my channel. So subscribe to my channel if you want to see that video. Otherwise, I just have one thing to say. I wish you a great life in freedom and democracy. Goodbye.